we learn skill sets that we can apply beyond our sport, right? But when our sport ends, we're so lost. But a lot of times purpose and passion are viewed as the same thing. They're not. When you have a purpose to what you're doing, it gives you the type of energy that's going to get you through the tough times, where a passion, yeah, you're going to have fun doing it, but you might be broke.
That's the issue. That's why you got to have that balance. All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to the On Track with Annie podcast, here with Mikey Taylor, former pro skateboarder, now turned into real estate guru with an insane portfolio. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about is your skateboarding career, how you got started with that, where it began and where it ended. That's what I want to discuss.
Okay, where it began was actually right around here,
okay.
Westlake, Oak Park. And it was, I didn't have this master plan of becoming a pro skateboarder. I just picked up a skateboard because I saw one of my friends with it, and ultimately I wanted to fit in. And it very, very quickly became an obsession, and then that was all I was doing. So from 13, 14, 15, 16, it was before school, after school, it was all skateboarding. And then I started getting pressure from my parents to get a job, and I didn't want to. And so I came up with this plan that if I could get companies to give me free stuff, I could avoid working. And so that was my mission. I made a bunch of videos of me basically skateboarding. I sent them out to companies, and I had a handful of them call me back, and then I was getting free products.
An influencer at that age.
Yeah, it's like a late 90s influencer.
That's amazing.
And so that was kind of the beginning of it. I was still in high school, so basically I'd have, I got shoes, skateboards, clothes, everything I needed to skateboard. And then I would sell either some of my used stuff to local skaters to have a little bit of money. And then that lasted until my senior year. And then I got the opportunity to start traveling. So my senior year, I had sponsors start putting me in magazines. So I was getting a little bit of press. And then July, the month after I graduated, there was this big Europe trip that I was basically invited to go on. And so I looked at my parents. I was like, hey, I'm going to do this, And they were not comfortable with that. They thought being a pro skateboarder was crazy. But I ended up going for it. I thought I was going to probably be a pro skateboarder for about three years, and then I go back to school, and then I ultimately thought I'd be an attorney. And then it ended up going way longer than I thought. So I ended up being a pro for about 14 years. It ended in 2016.
So there's a misconception about professional athletes and the money that you make. I read an article that you did not make the money that you wanted to at the beginning. You did towards the end. Yeah,
that's probably the Business Insider interview.
Okay.
So first off, skateboarders especially do not make money.
Okay.
The average skateboarder probably makes $60,000 a year, and their career lasts maybe 5 years.
Is it still like that today?
It's getting worse, not better.
Got it.
Yeah, when I was a skater, that was the most money you could make as a pro skateboarder. And then I would say the last 5 years, the whole industry has just been, decreasing in size. I started off making, $800 a month, and then it turned into $1,500. I remember I got to a point making $2,000 a month. I was like, this is awesome, And then towards the later half of my career, I started making pretty decent money, but not enough to just check out. Even if I wouldn't have started my first business, I would have stopped skateboarding, and then I would have had to get right back into the next thing. It wasn't enough for me to just check out.
It's interesting too, going from a sport to a business, because it's kind of you're basing everything on performance, how you're doing. To shift your mindset to now business mode, where you have to change everything completely. How was that journey?
There was part of it that was easy. There was part of it that was really hard. The goal setting element was easy for me. The performance element was easy for me. I hate losing. I'm very competitive. So once I was kind of set on what I was here to accomplish, it was fine. The hard part was, in skateboarding, we don't have teams, right? There's no coach. There's no one organizing and managing a group of people. Just me. I was an individual. So going from an individual into building a business that wasn't me being a solopreneur, we had a full team, that took time to learn. The management of people was difficult for me.
What was step one in building a team?
Okay, step one, the first business I started, we had to basically go out and raise money for. We didn't have enough money to start it ourselves. So the first team, you had to ultimately sell the dream that people were going to leave their jobs and their income to take a risk on this company. So the first part was selling. That part was easy for me. Like I've always been able to kind of get people involved in the things I was interested in, right? But you only have so long until that dream is not realized and people abort, right? And so in the beginning, we got maybe 7 people on board, you know, who our brewer was going to be, who our sales guy was going to be, et cetera. And then we opened doors. And from the point of us opening doors, that's where we had to perform or we were going to lose people. And that was the part that was hard for me to learn. Like my view or my expectation of what I thought you were capable of was typically higher than what the people around me thought the bar was. And so like I was frustrated that I felt like, you know, either you weren't performing or you were being lazy or whatever. Like it was hard for me to learn how to lead next to somebody as opposed to, you know, trying to lead from a front and just being frustrated that I'm doing more than you are. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, that's where it comes down to kind of giving everyone certain sections of the business that they need to be in and kind of dividing things up.
Yep.
So after this business, you sold it. Is that correct?
Yep.
Did you know that you wanted to go into real estate immediately?
No, so I was investing in real estate passively. Like I have always liked real estate as an investment. I never thought I would create a business inside of real estate. When we sold our brewery, we sold it in 2015. And then I continued to skate for that last year. And then in 17, it probably took me 12 months of figuring out what I wanted to do. And it took me like truthfully in that time, like I was a little bit more lost. Like, you know, I felt like there was a lot of identity issues I was working through. And it was hard to find what business I was going to create when there were so many issues like internally that were going on. And that, probably took 12 months to work through. And then it was a random phone call that sparked this idea that ultimately led to the creation of my current business.
It's interesting because people always talk about the chase of something. And then once you get it, it's not as good as you think it's going to be. Yeah. And that's what it seems like what you're talking about. It's like you get that sale.
Yeah.
And you're like, this doesn't feel as good as I thought.
Well, it's interesting. There's kind of 2 parts to that, right? What I learned about myself is that like I enjoy the pathway to get there. I don't necessarily enjoy the finish line because truthfully, like the finish line is short-lived. I think I realized that prior to us selling our business, because that's actually how skateboarding felt. Like you would set your goals. I want to have a pro board. I get a pro board. Oh, this is awesome. And then like 2 months later, it's like totally normal. I want a pro shoe. Same thing, right? The identity part was different than that, though. It wasn't that I hit my goal and then it was like a now what. What I was wrestling with was more of the idea around like, why am I even here, right? Like what is my purpose ultimately? And so much of that was skateboarding, right? Like I'm here to skateboard. I'm here to build my brand inside of skateboarding. When I meet people, I'm Mikey Taylor, the pro skateboarder, right? It became my worldview, my identity, everything, right? When that went away, it's almost like the lights went out. It was very strange where now I'm friends with so many other athletes in other categories. What happens is we learn skill sets that we can apply beyond our sport, right? But when our sport ends, we're so lost that we don't even know what game we're playing any longer. And it makes it very difficult for us to take the skills that we have and even apply them. And it's very easy for that to lead into like depression and being lost and not knowing who we are, why we're here. And that is what I had to work through. Once I figured that out, then it was like, okay, what is the business idea that's going to basically grab my attention? And then it was, okay, let's step on the gas, but it wasn't easy. It was far from easy.
Now, did you have a mentor? Because I feel like as athletes, it's like you have your coach, right? And they're kind of helping you through it. And then when you don't have that, it's like, okay, now it's all on me. So did that phone call that you had?
No, it was the mentor that I had was in the financial world. Okay. Like I had somebody who was helping me with money. I did not have somebody that was coaching me really. For example, most skaters had agents, they had managers, they had people negotiating their deals. I did all that, right? What happened was I had not been pro for a year, right? 12 months. I had not been working. I had not been doing anything. I was trying to find myself, right? And I had somebody call me who was a pro skateboarder, and he's a friend of mine, and he was basically just like checking in on me, like, dude, how are you? Like, you have disappeared, right? And I remember, like, in that phone call, I was very open with him. I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm lost, you know? And I'm telling him all this stuff like, dude, I knew who I was. I was happy, optimistic. And now I just look at myself and go like, who is this person, right? Mm-hmm. And as I'm telling him this, like, you know, I was hoping that like my friend was going to like consult, it's going to be okay, right? All he could think about was the financial aspect. He's like, no. How are you surviving? You have no money coming in. You're married, you have a house, you have kids. How are you doing this, right? And it was interesting. I was like, I'm stuck on the emotion. He's looking at the financial aspect. And that phone call led to me just basically sitting on the couch going, dang, like, that is pretty crazy that I'm in a position where I lose all of my income basically overnight, and I don't have to go into survival mode and get another job the next day. Like, I actually have the luxury to work some of this stuff out, right? And that kind of thought led to me ultimately going, how did I even get here? Mm-hmm. Like, what were the decisions I made that put me in this position that made me the rarity or the unicorn in our industry? And how could I replicate that? And as I was trying to figure out all the decisions I made over the last 20 years, there were two things that basically I kept landing at. One, I had somebody come in and actually teach me about like the foundational kind of pillars of finance, mm-hmm. right? How do you create a budget? How do you build credit? How do you invest in assets that actually get you to your end goal? So that was one, empowerment. And then two, I had investments that I was making. I had access, right? And so I basically went, my next business will be recreating that. Like, how can I make it so that the majority of my friends who are pro skateboarders, and then, you know, people in other industries of sport can get to a point that, you know, when their career ends, they're good. They can go through the same crap that I had to go through, which was like, you know, who am I? Why am I here? What are my skill sets, et cetera? Like, I hate seeing people who I view as heroes basically stop their career and stop making impact. It's almost like they had a small window of greatness and then it just starts fading out through the years. That breaks my heart.
So how do you feel like in your business now you are making impact?
Okay, so there's two ways that we're attempting to, I guess is the best way to say it. One, all of our content, which is daily, brand new content every single day, is geared around empowerment, mm-hmm. right? And it starts from foundational stuff like creating a budget all the way up to accelerated depreciation and playing the game of basically offsetting taxes, right? That is meant so that if you want to do everything yourself, you have the tools to do it, mm-hmm. right? The second part is for, you know, we have about 550 investors. It's growing pretty fast. Our goal is to help them get to financial freedom so that they can focus on their greatest calling, and then we can assist them in the wealth building process.
Got it. So I feel like it's a lot of people's goal to own real estate. I hear it all the time. They want to do that as a full-time job. So for someone that maybe is making, let's say, $100,000 a year, and they want to start investing in real estate, and I know you said in a video there's a difference between owning real estate and investing in real estate. So tell me the difference of that and how you can begin to build to 1 property, 2 properties, to 5 properties and do it as a full-time thing.
Okay, so yeah, there's active investor or mm-hmm. passive investor, right? If you want to make your job about real estate, buying real estate, investing in real estate, you have to learn it. It's first and foremost, right? You have to treat it the same way you would treat a sport, right? What sport did you play?
Track and field.
Track and field. Okay, you can't just like never train and all of a sudden go, oh, I'm going to sign up for this meet and win, right? There's a sacrifice that has to be made for you to get to the point of being competitive, right? Same thing applies in real estate. You have to know how to underwrite projects to know if it's even a good project or not. You have to learn how to negotiate, right? You have to get a broker to give the project to you versus somebody else, right? You have to learn how to get the financing. You have to learn how to raise money. All of those components go into empowering yourself, and then you just have to act, right? That's one side of it. The other side is people who want to own real estate as an investment, but don't want to do that, right? Like, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a YouTuber, you're a business owner. You're already doing your thing, mm-hmm. but you like the idea of having an investment in a tangible asset that gives you some tax help. That's desirable. So that's more where our company comes in, or companies like us.
What's your view on Airbnb versus doing something like just a yearly rental?
Okay, so I've been a little bit, how would you say this, hard on Airbnb.
Okay.
I think it's a cool model. Like when Airbnb first came out, I thought it was so cool, right? Airbnb, in my perspective, has dropped the ball. So what I loved about it when they introduced the process was I could go rent a place for a discount versus the competitor, a hotel, and it felt more like real life, less like living out of a hotel, which can be inconvenient. But now with all the fees and the pricing, it's now more cost efficient to go to a hotel, which offers more amenities than it is an Airbnb. So just on that nature, I think Airbnb is an insecure product right now. Then when you add the investment side of it, right, it became a trend. And it happened at a time where money was cheap and everyone had too much of it. So you saw people come into the space that were not real estate investors jumping onto the bandwagon while it was hot, which means you're not getting any good deals, right? And now I think the painful kind of point in time is coming out where people bought assets they shouldn't have, they overpaid, and now they're underwater and they're having to flip the bill every month to keep it cash flow positive. I don't think that's good.
It's definitely not good. So for someone that wants to invest in a yearly rental property, let's say, where is the best place to do that? And how much of their income should they put towards that investment? Let's say if they are making something like $100,000 a year, I'm just putting that as a baseline.
Yeah, that's a good question. So it depends on your philosophy. There are a lot of investors out there that follow where people are going, right? Where's the most net migration happening? And they invest in those areas. There's other people that invest in areas because they're a little bit cheaper. But I would say the majority of people invest where it's easy, right? They'll go into a city where, there's not a ton of regulation. It's easy to get projects up, kind of money flows, right? Where that is, I would say right now, I don't know, the Carolinas are really hot. North Carolina is like pumping. Alabama is really hot. Tennessee's still hot. Like there's still a lot of markets that have high demand. But that is not how I invest. Like I do want to be clear. Like I do not invest that way. I tend to invest in markets that are more difficult and have a higher barrier to entry. So that is not going to apply if you're making $100,000 a year and you want to own your own asset yourself, right? That will only apply if you're making a lot of money or you're going to bring investors in. So, what should you use out of your income to purchase it? It depends. Like when you start getting region specific, the cost fluctuates so much. I would say, if you can get to a point where you're putting 20% down and then have an asset that pays itself. So it's a little bit different because your debt to income ratio is not the same as you buying a house. Like when you buy a house, you have to consider that the monthly payment towards your mortgage is coming out of your pocket, right? When you're buying an investment property, it's not. The only thing coming out of your pocket is potentially the down payment. So it's a little bit different of a, I don't know what you would say, metric. But, there's programs now where you can put as little as 3.5% down.
That's why. What programs are those?
Like it's an FHA product. So there's a lot of products for first-time home buyers where you won't have to put a 20% down payment on. And what's cool is a lot of those products work for duplexes, triplexes, and quads, right? This is like the house hacking model. So you can buy a fourplex, use an FHA loan, which is 3.5% down. You have to live in one of the units for a year, but that gets you into an asset and you get the 3 other tenants helping you pay your mortgage. And then, you can leave in a year, fill your unit in, you have a cash flowing asset.
I feel like it's hard to find those.
Super hard. Yeah, but everything's hard. You pick what you want your hard to be.
So when you say you invest in harder areas, give me the last 3 areas that you invested in.
Okay. We just closed on a project in Ventura, which is close to here. It's about 25 miles north. The project before that, we closed on in San Diego. And then the one before that was, where was the one before that? Indianapolis, Indiana. That one is somewhat of a different type of hard. The market itself is not hard. The strategy that we apply in that market is. On that project, it's a retail store that we're converting to storage.
Interesting.
That strategy is difficult, but we're doing it in a market that's not like Ventura, San Diego.
So are you the type of person that likes to take over one area, let's say like Southern California, and then move to the next? Or are you always looking at everywhere around the United States?
What a good question. I typically like owning a market. That's typically what I like doing. But depending on the product that you invest in, it's either easy to do that or hard. Like for multifamily, we can do that. I really like Ventura. We have 3 projects out there right now. I would be happy if I tripled that. Storage, it's very hard to do that. Like our storage is all over the place. Washington, here, Illinois, Iowa, Ohio. It's all over.
Mm-hmm. It seems like a good business model then is not to have a single family home. It's to have these duplexes and storage and retail places and stuff like that.
It depends.
Okay.
Right? It depends. Like in my perspective, I would never invest in single family. Like it is not for me, right? The reason why I say that, you're not going to achieve financial freedom with one project, right? You have to get to 10 to 30 of these things. So the idea of buying one individual home, negotiating it, getting the debt for it over and over and over seemed much harder than me buying a 30-unit apartment. So I just thought it was easier to manage in that sense. There's also this idea that I like doing things that other people aren't doing. Like I don't know, like single family, the barrier to entry, or I would say most people feel like buying a home is possible, right? Most people don't think buying an apartment is possible. Even though they both are, that's what they think. I like doing the thing that people think is tough.
That's interesting. So I'll tell you my story with my first property.
Okay, what was it?
So I bought a townhouse about 2 years ago. My interest rate was 2.3%. Great deal. So now it's doubled in value. Yep. A lot of people are selling. So I'm in the risk of, do I sell? I don't know if you should call it a risk or not. Sell or rent it out and continue keeping the property as an investment when the value could potentially go up higher, or selling it and making the profit and reinvesting somewhere else.
Okay, so what are you reinvesting in?
I would probably reinvest in something like a duplex.
In a duplex. And where's your interest rate going to land on that?
Probably a lot higher, 7% or so.
And it's probably going to be more expensive than what you purchased the last one at, right? So it's the hard part about selling is usually you sell at a high and then you're buying a new thing at a high. So you're not really moving into a better investment necessarily. If that were my property, right? I love the idea of having 2% interest rate. Like that is insane, so amazing. Right? Yes. So I would, if it were me personally, I'd be looking for a way to rent that out. And then I would try to come up with more cash to get another project is what I would do.
In a different area. Love that.
Yeah. That's what I would
Delray
do.
Beach is up and coming.
2%. 2%.
Crazy, right? It was the perfect time.
I'm not sure we'll ever see that again. So I would view that as an asset right now.
Yeah. So I saw something interesting that you posted on side hustles. And I thought this was really cool because I think a lot of people want to have their full-time income and they want to have side hustles. But you kind of said something against side hustles. So talk to me about that.
Oh, what did I say? Okay. So I like the idea of side hustles. Let's start with that. Like the idea of you doing something on the side to make more money. I love the idea of that. The problem is whenever we do it, we end up focusing our time on potentially the thing that's not making a lot of money. And we take our time away from the thing that is. And so you run the risk of actually putting yourself in a worse position and ultimately making less money because you're not putting your energy towards the thing that pays you, right? The caveat to that is if you're going to create a side hustle that you want to become a business, I'm totally good with that, right? But if you have no intention at ever leaving your main income source and you're just trying to do something on the side to make a little bit more, I think there's better ways for you to go about making more money. you know?
I think the problem too is like some of these side hustles are people's passions. And I guess you can relate it to skateboarding. Like maybe your passion isn't making you money. So you need to go for the thing that is making you money first to fund your passions.
Yep.
Is that a good way of looking at it?
I think so. Like, look, I love playing golf.
Yeah.
I'm not making any money playing golf. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just a fun thing. It's not what I'm the greatest at. So, yeah, I would look at how do you make as much money. Well, I guess there's a couple parts to this, right? Like, I think making money is good, but when you can be using your skill set and kind of align purpose with how you make money, I think that's the holy grail. But a lot of times purpose and passion are viewed as the same thing. They're not, right? So I think in a perfect world, when you have a purpose to what you're doing, it gives you the type of energy that's going to get you through the tough times, where a passion, yeah, you're going to have fun doing it, but you might be broke, you know?
That's the issue with it. That's why you got to have that balance and not put too much time towards that at first until it is making you money.
Right.
So when it comes to side hustles, what would be your top 3 best side hustles to go for? Top 3 worst?
Okay. It's changing so fast, but I would say go all in on content right now, actually. Like what TikTok is doing right now is kind of wild, right? Like TikTok is simultaneously making a run at YouTube and Amazon at the same time, right? They're attempting to take over search engine, long form content, and attention, and they're building out their basically 3PL of their TikTok shop that is allowing creators to be entrepreneurs without having to manage business at all, right? It's crazy. And then on top of that, just how you're paid off of views. They're trying to compete with YouTube, which right now is, the highest payer in the space. That has the ability to, 1, bring attention towards your business, like we talked about earlier, and 2, can actually become an alternative income stream and the ability to add new verticals without having to make like the actual investment of ordering your minimum products, managing your inventory, all done for you.
You know what's interesting with TikTok is I think people go towards trends or what looks pretty and sounds and stuff like that. But I feel like when it comes to fueling your business, what actually is good is talking to the camera and sharing some information.
Right.
Do you find that's the case with what your content does?
It depends who you ask. If you ask my wife's like, your content is so boring. Like it puts me to sleep, And then like I have a ton of people that follow me and go, I love this information, right? So it depends who your audience is. But I think if you're really talking about doing it the best way, I think blending entertainment and value is probably the best way. Like the value-tainment type of content is good.
Yeah, and linking it towards, I guess, what your offering is.
Well, that for sure. Yeah, if you're just, now we're back to hobbies, right? If you're just creating content to create content, it's a passion, right? If you're using content in a way of, increasing your leads or driving people to your business, now it's just a lead source, right? It's just marketing.
100%.
So I like that idea.
Okay, so top side hustles, content. 100%.
Content's a big one. Yeah, I think content is like a really solid one right now.
Yeah.
I think the UGC stuff is really good. Oh gosh, I would say, honestly, if I was creating I need a side hustle right now, so there's programs on like TikTok, right? Amazon has the same thing where you're just selling product through your content, right? You just go live, you start creating content around oil pulling, right? The company just gives you basically a percentage of the revenue and you just sell. Like it is such an easy way to make money right now. So yeah, I'm leaning more and more towards just start creating content.
Everyone's gonna be selling oil and random.
I mean, it's all I see now. I swear, every time I pull up TikTok, it's like oil pulling is everywhere. It's like, what's that stuff you put in your belly button?
What?
There's an oil you put in your belly button. Right?
People actually buy that.
Yeah.
This is
it starts with
world.
a C. Is it castor oil? Is that something?
You put that in your belly button.
I swear.
Oh God.
I swear.
I need to watch these videos.
Yeah, I swear, dude. TikTok, they're just selling stuff.
The fact that people actually pay attention to that are like, this is something I need to buy, purchase it right now, amazing. And they don't care how much it costs.
I know. But look, I'm telling you,
wild.
Soon, you'll buy, I think you're going to buy the majority of your stuff from TikTok.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's just begun.
It's just begun.
That is insane.
I know.
All right, let's get to the top 3 worst. Anything that's not
Top 3 worst side hustles. Okay, I'm gonna say this just because it's driving me nuts. I am getting DMs, cold DM'd, 10 times a day about people that want to create my edits. They want to take my content and chop it up and edit it with the like quick zoom in, zoom out, right? The B-roll, stock footage, etc.
So you don't like that?
It drives me nuts. Right? The reason being, one, I think there's an art to cold calling and cold emailing. 95% of people don't do it well. And so don't do that. The other thing, people start to look for trends that are going to be short-lived, and then they sell them so far beyond the trend that it feels to me like you're taking advantage of people.
What's
like
an
even
example
that,
of that?
okay, let's use the hyper editing, right?
Okay.
Like you know what I'm talking about, right? Like
Yeah.
somebody says like, I don't know, you never want to pay taxes again. It zooms out and it's like money flowing and zoom in. You know what I'm talking about?
It's
Like the
ridiculous.
ADD style editing, right? Okay, that's gone. That is not at play anymore. People do not watch that stuff. You're trending away from that and moving more into long form, real, almost like vlog style, right? It feels like we're going back to like almost 10 years ago. And so I get hit with these guys, maybe girls, but most of them seem like guys, that are like, your content could engage 20% better because of the way you edit. I'm looking at this going, guys, I'm not even a social media like expert, and you guys don't know what's going on. I don't want to be the one to tell you the trend is gone. That drives me nuts. I don't know. So if you're doing that for a side hustle, it's over. You've missed the window.
I feel like a lot of podcasts do that, where they do like some crazy edits. So you think it's better just straight to the camera, maybe some like words underneath?
I think
to see what you're saying?
I think we're moving in that way. I think we're moving
Simple.
back towards real, right? Like spend a little bit more time with me. Let me have like the nuance to the conversation. Don't give me the seizure style content. Like, just let me see it. You know?
It seems like YouTube long form then would be something to look back at, which I feel like people are not doing as much. I feel like people are really focused on short form content.
I think
right
it's
now.
going to move back to long form.
Yeah, which I enjoy. I prefer watching YouTube instead of Netflix,
Right.
to be honest. I don't
Right.
know how you are with
The
that,
same
but
way.
I'm like, I would rather watch a YouTube style video, surfing, snowboarding, whatever the case may be, than watch a Netflix show.
Yeah,
And
I
I
agree.
think a lot of people think, like when I look at kids, which is so interesting to me, I always pay attention to what they're watching. It's always YouTube or Snapchat and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's at least where like we're starting to go. We're starting to go more towards that. Like who was the big YouTuber back in the day? Casey
Neistat.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I think like what he was doing back then is going to have a resurfacing now. That's what I think.
Well, he has cool edits with the drone footage and the skateboard and all
Super
this
cool.
stuff around the city.
Yeah.
Like the style of it was super interesting and unique.
Right.
And I feel like that's what people are missing.
So you know what I think? If I were to really simplify it, I think we're going towards quality and not quantity. Where the last 3 years were definitely
Quantity.
like, how many posts can you get out in a day?
Well, you saw like the Charlie D'Amelio girl,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah, the first TikTok influencer, right?
And she would put out like, it was like 15 videos a day. And everyone was saying like, that's how she grew. Like I remember Gary Vee would always say like, the more, the better, like every
Right.
single day. And it was like, how can we keep up with this?
Right.
But I agree with you now. It's like, you'll see different people that are big on TikTok and it's one or two.
Yep.
And it's good quality and they're straight to the face and it's them talking.
Yep. So that's right. That's where I think the trend's going to go. But I mean, we'll see how long it lasts.
It's
Then we'll change
interesting.
it up again.
All right, so I have another question for you on money. If someone has a family, let's say they have a wife, 2 kids, and they want to live in a big city, Miami, LA, New York, how much do you actually need to earn to live comfortably in a place like that?
Los Angeles?
Los Angeles, New York, Miami, I feel like it's all kind of similar.
Okay, it's so hard. If you're married with 2 kids,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, and you want to live in LA and you want to live comfortably. North of 200.
Okay.
250 grand, and it's going to feel like it goes fast. It's wild.
Okay, so break that down for me because I've seen you do this a lot.
Okay.
In the simplest terms.
Okay, so when we look at comfortably, everyone has to know that that's different than what you can pull off.
Yes.
Right? So when you look at a house, like the average house in California right now, maybe you're looking at LA, is what, 850, 900 grand, right? So if you're considering that you're going to put 20% down, and that interest rates on a 30-year fixed are what right now, 7% or so?
I would say about that.
Right. That's a big payment every month. And so, when you're looking at like the comfortability aspect, like, they don't want you to spend more than 28% of your income on your mortgage. That's comfortable. You can go higher than that. Well, that's a huge chunk of income that just goes towards your house. So that's really what drives this thing up. And then when you consider, how expensive gas is here, food, everything is expensive. Insurance is through the roof. So it's the hard part is it's very hard for you to have a single income and live in California now.
It's interesting too, because if someone wants to travel at all with their kids, with their family, it seems like you need to be making a lot more than that. I would have assumed that you would say like 400.
Well, look, the more money you make, the more comfortable it's going to be, right? But if you can pull it, you can absolutely pull it, right? A lot of times though, depending on your priorities, we spend money in ways that we don't need to, right? Like even if you're looking at the type of clothes we buy, right? Like you're either going to buy whatever pair of pants or you're going to buy a pair of pants for a couple $100, right? Like that variance can be pretty big. Mm-hmm. Most people today are spending more on things, travel, experience, what am I going to enjoy in the moment, and less on like just sheer necessities, So it all depends, but 200K is going to feel like you're just scraping by for a lot of people, which is nuts. It's nuts.
It's crazy how expensive.
That's considering you have to buy a house now, though, right? There is look, depending on when you bought a house, that throws everything off, right? If you bought a house 5 years ago, it's going to feel like you need 110 grand compared to the person buying a house today that's going to feel like they need 220.
And the taxes. What do you factor that in? Is it actually 50% here?
Like including Fed and state?
Yes.
No, it's not 50%. So this is the thing about taxes, right? There's tax brackets, right? So when you're in, let's say, the higher tax bracket, you assume that all of your money is being taxed at, let's say, 37%. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's, a percentage is taxed at, this amount, then this amount, then this amount, and then that leads to your effective tax rate. Your effective tax rate ends up becoming less than your marginal. But, you could definitely be in a situation where almost half of your income is going away if you live in California. But you're going to be a high income earner for that.
Yeah. If you didn't live in California, where would you live?
Maybe Austin,
Texas.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where everyone is going from here.
Well, it's because it feels like a cool, clean LA.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't been there yet, but I'm really interested in going.
I was blown away. It seriously, it feels hip, fresh, cool people. Feels like business is going on, and it is clean. That's the big kicker. Wow. It's like it feels like Aspen almost. Like there's like no trash. There's no homelessness. There's nothing.
I feel like there's not a lot to do there. Is there?
There's a ton to do there.
Because they don't. I mean, the surfing and the snowboarding aspect of like Aspen, California, you don't have any.
You're not snowboarding. You can surf now. They have a surf pool in Waco.
They do.
Yeah, it's sick. Feels like you're surfing in Oxnard.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, so Austin, Texas.
Well, look, I don't think I'm ever going to leave California, but I think that would be where I would go if I did.
When you travel, where do you go?
Let's see. I went to Montana last weekend.
Oh, beautiful.
That was really fun.
Oh my God, it's gorgeous.
We're going to go to Idaho in about 3 weeks.
Nice.
I go to Vail actually at the end of this month.
You going to snowboard or ski?
I hope so. Okay. We'll see. If I have enough time, I will. We do a biannual trip to Hawaii. So every other year we go to Hawaii. And then we do spend some time in Texas, actually. We have some family out there. So.
Nice. In Austin?
No, in Dallas, actually.
Ah,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's another big part of it. So.
Yeah. I mean, there's stuff happening in Dallas. It's just not as hip.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more like old money, it feels like.
Got it. So what's next for you that you're most excited about this year?
This year is one of those head down years for us. When, like in real estate, I mean, it's similar to other things, but real estate is cyclical. So there's moments where everything's very expensive, and then there's moments where you can buy things on sale. We're in one of those moments right now. And typically when you're in a moment where you can go after opportunity, that's when it's scary to do so. It's when it's harder to raise money. It's when it's harder to get financing. And so I'm kind of have our team geared at, we are going to take as much market share as we possibly can right now. It's going to be hard, but I don't know how long this window is going to last. So while we're in it, I want to feel like we did our best. And then once we're out of it, okay, then we'll go back to doing business as usual. So
leave no crumbs.
I don't want any crumbs left. So we are working very hard right now. This is a grind type of year.
I love to hear that. I'm hoping the same for myself. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So where can they find you on social media, all platforms?
Mikey Taylor. Just search my name and thankfully I come up somewhere at the top. Yeah.
Business name? What's your business called?
Commune Capital.
Commune Capital. We'll link that below. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.